Hello, everybody. Welcome again to another Mid-City TV Live and another chat with Dr. Fani Rubio. We have been talking with Dr. Fani Rubio during the whole pandemic. It has been nearly a year and a half since we shut down here in Yucatan, and pretty much the whole Western world shut down. And so I wanted to talk to Fani today and get an update on what's happening here in Yucatan, the vaccines, how we're going with the vaccines. I know I've been keeping up with it. The government has been giving us a lot of information about that. I've been trying to share that with you all. But we're in a time of we're in an unknown territory here, and I wanted to get a little bit of the inside look that Dr. Fani Rubio has been living over the last year and a half. Dr. Rubio has been on the front lines of the COVID fight here in Mérida, Yucatan. And I know many of you have seen Dr. Rubio either because you have got COVID or because you know somebody who has, or she's simply your doctor. And she's been super helpful, especially to the foreign community here in Mérida. So we're going to talk to her today. I'm going to bring her on right now, and let's just get this started. Also, I do want to say real quick before I bring her on, I am going to have the chat on. And so definitely, if you have a question, a specific question, chime in. I will get to it as soon as I can. All right. Hello, Fani.
Hello.
How are you today?
Fine, thank you. Thank you for having me again. It's so exciting.
Yes. Thank you so much. I mean, you're always just a voice of reason, and I know a lot of people look to you to see how things are going, but to get to feel a little bit more confident about the COVID situation here, if that's even a possibility, and just to kind of to get the latest. So I thank you so much for taking time out of your day. I know you're always busy, and you're in the hospital, and you're with patients, and you're always making space for me, for sure, because I know I do chat with you quite a bit. And so I do thank you so much for being here.
No, you're welcome. My pleasure. So yes, I want to talk a little bit today about a couple of topics about the evolution of the COVID in Mérida, especially because right now, since we started the pandemic, and right now we have like a little more information, and we have seen how the virus is like trying to be in Yucatan, especially because we have like a different environment, and also we have a different like behavior, if you want to say like that, of the virus. Normally, happily, we're having like a lot of percentage of mild cases. But we are seeing also some cases that are getting complicated, but they're the few. Right now, we are having like more information about how we treat the virus, how we get less complications, and how help people to get more, like a little more easy with their situation, because everybody was very anxious at the beginning because nobody was knowing what's going on and what's happening through that process, which was very terrible because everybody's thinking, oh my God, I get COVID, I'm going to die, which is not the case right now. I mean, the people who's getting complicated is the less people. Okay.
Right.
So oh, sorry.
Okay. No, go ahead.
So yes, one of the strategies that everybody's trying to help is just keep on the safety of taking precautions, because this virus, we have to live with it. It's not going to end, never. I mean, we have to adapt, and it's part of the evolution, if you want to think like that. I mean, it's part of the evolution of the human beings. Okay, so we have to get exposed, even if we have a control exposure through the vaccine, or we have like a natural exposure if you get sick. But we're seeing like different kinds of situations that we can describe a little more.
Right. Well, okay. So let's take it back a little bit. So, last year, of course, was like everybody was up in arms. We didn't know what was going on. Nobody had the vaccination yet. So then coming into January, February, March, we start to see, especially in the United States, or well, let's just take the U.S. as the example. They start to get the vaccine rolling out pretty quickly to the masses. right? It's been very slow coming here in Mexico. And I know that that has also been a question. Okay, why is it so slow coming? You know, there's different vaccines that are coming here that are coming to the United States. So and as the vaccines are rolling out, people start thinking, okay, good, I'm vaccinated, and so therefore I'm a lot more protected, obviously, and I can go out, and now there's this fight between the vaxxers and the anti-vaxxers, so they say, or people who are choosing not to be vaccinated. So there's all this confusing kind of going on. As far as in Yucatan, we really didn't start getting vaccinations until, I believe, April was the first set in the 60s.
Yes.
So can you tell us, give us an idea about how that vaccination process has really started to evolve here in Yucatan and where we're at right now?
Actually, the state government, since the beginning of the pandemic, they were trying to get vaccines, but it was very difficult to get it, especially because the federal government wants to do the shipments through to make the control of the vaccines. Right now, all the vaccines are through the public services, so that means that nobody can buy actually in a private service, the vaccine of COVID, because that's a question that the people ask me, that if they can go to a vaccination center and they can buy the vaccine. No, you can do it through the social departments. They have the specific places that you can get. So after that, we started the vaccination. Normally in March, they said that we're going to get the vaccine. It takes some time, especially because we didn't have all vaccines. At the beginning, we have the Russian vaccine, the Sputnik, and then we have the other vaccine, which was the Chinese and the AstraZeneca and some of Pfizer. Right now,
the Chinese was the Sinovac and the CanSino.
And the CanSino, yes. Yes, and right now we are seeing like the Sputnik vaccine is not a very good vaccine. Actually, if some people that get at the beginning of the pandemic get like a Sputnik or that vaccine, we are recommending to get another kind of vaccine. But this is very subtle, because this kind of vaccine, like Sputnik, for example, we don't know a lot of information about this biosafety of that vaccine. We don't know how many time we have to wait until we can actually recommend to someone to get another vaccine, because all the vaccine has different mechanism to work on it. So that makes the vaccine have some kind of reaction in your body. And some people has different diseases. For example, there are people who's having diabetes, high blood pressure, or other kinds of problems. And that makes like very specific to know if they're candidates or not to get another vaccine. Right now, we're having like more AstraZeneca. That's the vaccine they're applying right now. Pfizer vaccine, we're not having enough. They were applying second shots of Pfizer a few weeks ago, but they run out, and they don't know when we're going to get another one.
So people that had got the first shot of Pfizer, there's still people that haven't been able to get the second shot.
Yes, they're like in some point they're not good strategies to get everybody vaccinated and have like enough vaccines for having the first and the second shot at the same time.
Right. So what would you say? So that as far as the ages that have had access to both vaccines, whatever vaccine it is, what are the ages? Is it 50 and above really that have?
Actually, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Right now, we are doing this. Normally, they are vaccinated right now people over 40 and 49 years old. But if someone from 50 years old or 60 years old needs the vaccine because he hasn't had the vaccine, he can go, even if he's not over this age. And I'm going to talk specifically about the case of the expats. Because at the beginning of the pandemic was very, very harsh, the situation, and we need that people had residency, like permanent residency or temporary residency, to access to the vaccine. In some point of the pandemic, everybody, even they were not resident or permanent resident, can have the vaccine. What was the problem after that? The certificate for proof the vaccination, which is very important, for example, for Canadian people. who needs to go back to their places, they need to they prove they have the both shots. And if they are not having the permanent resident or the temporary residency, because they have like a CO, the corp number, which is like the registration number for population in Mexico. If they don't have that, they cannot access for the certificate. In some point, I have helped people doing like a private certificate to prove that. But the best thing right now is they actually asking the one from the government. So even if they're not having the temporary or permanent resident, they can have the vaccine. The only problem is that they might be having some trouble getting the certificate that they
Right, the
need to
proof
prove.
that they have it if they need to go abroad.
Yes.
Right, because you're not given an actual sheet of paper. Like for example, in the United States, you get you just get a piece of paper right there, so you don't have to worry about going online or doing anything like that. You just get a piece of paper, and that says you're vaccinated, and that's the official piece of paper. But they're not doing that here. You actually have to go online and download it after you're vaccinated. So that's where the problem lies, especially for those who have to prove that they're vaccinated when they go back home or when they go to visit another country.
Yeah, that's the problem.
So right now, and I know a lot of people don't understand this, that right now in Yucatan, really the over 50s are the ones that have it pretty much all over the state have had access to both vaccines.
Yes.
They've pretty much gone through every village and the big city of Merida and all the villages with the first and the second vaccine of whichever one they're going to get, if there's two. But we are still seeing people from 40 to 49 getting their second vaccination. I see that come up on the government site. Oh, in this village, 40 to 49. So the reality is people under 50, not I don't know exactly the percentage, but not like maybe even half are fully vaccinated. And I know in Merida, in the state of Merida, because they did start from 18 and above in some places. I mean, it's not saying that anybody under 50 is not vaccinated. Of course not, because they have gone down, and they've gone down to 18 to 30, I think is where they are right now in some areas. But not everywhere in Merida. As I do know lots of people here in Merida are in that age range, and they're waiting to get called, and they have not been called yet.
Yeah, and that's a sad thing, because right now they're not having enough vaccines. So normally what happens is that the center of Mexico, the Mexico City Department, send the vaccines to all the little provinces in Mexico. So fortunately, we are one of the states that we are more like advanced at the vaccination point. But they are trying to cover all the old elderly stages until they get into the more young people. But right now the problem is that we're having that everybody's returning to the classes, so that makes another problem.
That's a whole other problem. Okay, so going back to, because now we seem to be okay there for a while, and then the Delta hit. So, there was the time of the elections. We're talking, I think this was end of May, right? May, and we went into yellow, and the curfew was taken off, and we were thinking, wow, okay, things are okay. And then Delta hit, and it all, hit the fan again, and you all were being really overwhelmed in the hospitals, and cases started going up, deaths started going back up. So how are we doing as far as the Delta strain now, or any other variants that are coming through the state in particular?
Well, honestly, in the cases, we're not seeing a difference in the severity of the virus. Well, the Delta is more contagious. Yes, it's true, but it's not very severe. It's different, the evolution of the illness is mostly is very mild, but yes, it spreads very fast. It's possible that we will have so many new variants, and we need to adjust. Right now, it's difficult to say, but this is a reality. The vaccines are not working enough. They're not good enough to control this situation. Why? because the virus is evolving, and it's evolving faster that they're going to create a vaccine to prevent it. Okay. And the reality is that even if the people is getting vaccinated, we have to understand that we don't prevent that we get into the hospital. We cannot prevent also we get sick. It's possible that we can get sick even getting vaccinated. And it's not it's not a reason to think that, oh, because I'm vaccinated, it's not possible to me to get COVID. It's a reality that you can get COVID because it's possible that you will have the brand new virus that is not into the selection of the vaccine that they put you on, you know? So
Right.
that's the reality. Maybe you will have mild, but you have to still take in like a quarantine because you can contaminate some other people and get infected some other people. And you can even get complicated even if you're vaccinated. So we are seeing cases of people dying with the vaccine, even people getting to the hospital. And that makes a lot of confusion. At the beginning of the pandemic, when the vaccine hit, they were saying, oh my God, the message was very clear. If I get the vaccine, I won't get sick. And then the second message was, okay, you can get the vaccine, but you will not get complicated and you will not go to die in the hospital. And now the message is, no, I mean, you can't even get vaccinated, but you even it's possible that you might be dying, or it's possible that you might be getting complicated even if you get the vaccine. So right now, I mean, the messages has been evolution. It's an evolution in that, but because also the COVID is evoluting in this sense. Okay. So
Right.
we cannot fully trust to be vaccinated is like the complete solution. So
Right. So, but let's see. I mean, as far as like percentages and the numbers of people that are grave in the hospital, that are unvaccinated versus vaccinated. Are you, or is the government or the state health statistics? Are they keeping track of the statistics on that? On who? I mean, is it mostly unvaccinated people that are having major complications, or is it what's going on with that as far as the hospitals here?
well, it's not everybody that gets complicated hasn't had the vaccine. I mean, some of the people that even getting complicated, it's having the vaccine, and there's so many factors. The first thing is that there's so many vaccines that we don't have in the U.S. I mean, you didn't have in the
Right.
U.S.
This
that
is
we are
another thing
having
I want
here.
to talk about. Right.
Sinovac, CanSino, Sputnik, those three vaccines, they started to have the COVID shots at the beginning, and those vaccines were not very clear the biosafety and the efficiency of those vaccines. Okay, so one of the things are that CanSino, it's a very bad vaccine. I mean, we're seeing that people who's had that vaccine is having problems. Actually, all the teachers here in Yucatan, they were vaccinated with CanSino, and it's very sad because it's a very bad vaccine. Okay. And also the Sinovac is not very good. Okay. What are the best? Pfizer is the best, yes. But AstraZeneca, for example, you have some point that you might be having some side effects. Okay.
Right.
We're seeing people also, there's so many shingles right now. Many people who's having shingle prots right now because right now there is like some effects of the immune system going down with the vaccine, and some things that we cannot understand very much how the body is reacting through this new vaccine. Okay. And yes, there are people who's having side effects, but that's why it's so important to be fully understanding why are the risks and benefits to having the vaccine and make your own decision. I mean, even if you don't want to get the vaccine right now because you want to wait until they improve the vaccine, or because you have health problems and you're not candidate to have the vaccine, you still have to be careful having like the meetings, being outside your house. I mean, it's very important to keep on taking care of yourself and taking care of other people too.
Okay, so I do. There's a couple of questions here.
Mhm.
Ileana asks, okay, so why do you think the CanSino is a bad vaccine? Why do you say that?
Because CanSino is a bad vaccine because it's not, I mean, the people who's having the vaccine is still having, like, it's a high incidency of people having CanSino getting the virus. okay? And they're getting the virus and it's not preventing you to infect you, okay? So it's just like, it's not
But
like a good vaccine, you know?
But would you say, because I know, like, for example, I know several people who have been vaccinated who have got COVID. However, seem to be, they're at their house and they're doing better. And that seems to be the general consensus internationally that, okay, yes, and they never said you were going to be completely immune if you get the vaccine, but your chances of having grave effects in the hospital are a lot less if you get any vaccine. So, are you seeing that is true?
That the people having the vaccine is having less complications, or
Yeah.
yes, I mean there are always exceptions to rules, but
But I
yes.
would say like the majority. So like if you in the hospital, I mean, and I don't know, because you are working with your patients. So in the hospitals that you're working with, the people that are having major complications, are they vaccinated or are they not? And so let's say, if you can give us the majority or some statistics, 8 out of 10, 7 out of 10, or
For example, the people that is getting complicated, most of them are getting complicated because they're having bad vaccines, not because they're having no vaccines. Okay, and people who's, yeah, you understand. I mean, people who's having bad vaccines, I meant like Sinovac, CanSino, Sputnik. Those kind of vaccines, 3 vaccines, are a high incidency of getting sick. Okay, and getting complicated even if you're having the vaccine.
okay.
Okay.
So
And
they're back. They're just not. They don't seem to be protecting
yes,
from going into the hospital, because I think at this point it's really the vaccine is there to help you not get to the point where you're going into the hospital.
exactly. Yes, and I want to make an example to like try to understand the situation. It's because right now people is just like thinking that only COVID exists in the world. So I want you to think, I mean, for example, you, Stephanie, how many times you think in tuberculosis?
Never.
Never. Okay. So obviously, when you go to visit Mexico, they said, "Oh my God, you have to put your TB shot, and you have to make." I mean, even if some Mexican go to study into the U.S., they ask you for your TB test and everything because we are a TB country. Okay, tuberculosis is a reality in Mexico, and it's a reality too that the 90% of the population, Mexican population, has some kind of contact with the tuberculosis bacteria. Okay, and the majority of the people has at some point the primal infection. I mean, the first infection of the TB, but nobody has TB. I mean, no, everybody gets TB. Okay, but you are in contact, you are exposed to the bacteria. So the human body creates like defenses, okay, for the TB bacteria. But if you get like diabetes, HIV, or something like that, you have the probability to get the tuberculosis exposed to your body. So the same thing will happen with COVID. You, every time you live and you will do your activities, we will get exposed to the virus. And
Right.
every time you get exposed, you will create your own defenses, okay? And you will be feeling like a normal flu, okay? So I mean, there's still normal flu going out, and we don't know that, okay? But we have to realize that we need to get exposed in some point, and our body needs to, I mean, the human race needs to evolve and don't think about that, okay?
Okay, let's look at a couple of these questions because I know people are chiming in here. Here, let's see. Mark Callum. Hi, Mark. And hi everybody for joining. I will get to everybody. But he says, okay, surely any vaccine is better than none at all. Statistics do show that you are less likely to die or be hospitalized.
Okay.
So,
Well, tricky question because depends on the situation of each person, but the statistics show that Pfizer is the best right now. it's the best vaccine that we have. Like it has
You're talking in Yucatan.
Yeah, and the world too, and it proves that they have like a better efficiency, a less kind of side effects at the moment. It's what the science is telling us, but we need to really think about all the vaccines. They have no enough data. And I want to tell something also. Mexico is a very difficult place to get epidemiology numbers correctly, because there's so many bad information coming around, and it's not the same thing that they report and what they show. So it's like very, very complicated. So in some point, getting a vaccine depends on the vaccine. I mean, at the beginning they were saying, yes, get any vaccine. But right now we have to be like a little more careful about what vaccine we're getting, because it's not the same thing to have one vaccine that has proved they have a very good safety in the patients and a very good efficiency during the illness, than have like any vaccine that is not going to be helpful. It's like you have non-vaccine. Okay.
Right. Okay, so here also part two of that question, it says Fanny mentioned shingles. Is she seeing a spike of that? Is it linked to COVID? Would she recommend also taking the vaccine that is available here, the Sinovac?
Yeah. Well, talking about the shingles, yes, we are seeing so many people getting shingles, and it's because also related with the COVID vaccine. It's not very well described what's going on, but one of the things is that once you get the herpes virus type 3 in the chickenpox when you're little, and when you get like an immunodepression, that's the moment when the shingles appear. And right now, it's very funny, but yes, when you get the COVID vaccine at the beginning of the vaccine, you get an immunodepression. And that's why if your system is not very good, you can have shingles. And yes, we do have in Mexico and Yucatan, we have the shingles vaccine. And yes, it's possible to buy it. And you can buy it in any vaccination center and the private services too. And yes, it's available.
Okay. And he said, would she recommend also taking the vaccine that is available here, the Sinovac?
Well, if it's no other choice than take Sinovac, well, take it. But if you can choose some other vaccine, it will be the best to take another vaccine better than Sinovac.
Right. Okay. So let's see. We have some more here. Let's see. Thank you, Fanny. Okay. Okay. So Vicky says the bottom line is vaccinated. You can still here. Let's see if we. Okay, vaccinated. You can still get it. Yeah. I'm a little slow with technology. You can still get it, and there's still a chance of complications, deaths, and side effects. Not vaccinated. Same thing, but without vaccine side effects. We have lost 2 friends, vaccinated, healthy, and gone. There are so many things that the health community still does not know. I would like to just see a discussion on the post-COVID symptoms that so many have developed and still developing. And doctors say be patient. And they say that because they do not know. Because they do not know. And I can't see the rest. But yeah, we get the idea. What would be your opinion on that, Fanny?
Yeah, what Mrs. Vicky is saying is completely true, and that's the truth. I mean, we're seeing so many things that we don't know what to expect. I mean, we're still learning about what to expect about the COVID. And yes, we're seeing so many people who's having so many post-COVID syndromes, and they're having chest problems, having hyperactivity. And yes, in some point, we don't know what to expect, because there's still so many things that they don't know about what's going on. And time will give us like the answers, sadly. And one of the things that of the vaccines is the same thing. And it's very cruel to say this, but with this emergency situation, I mean, everybody was so desperate to get the vaccine, and yes, we want to get vaccinated because that will improve our chances to not having a problem. But who's assuring that it's actually very safe to get those vaccines? It's actually safe. I mean, for example, Sputnik. Sputnik is one of the vaccines that at the beginning was very criticized in the stage 1, and suddenly no one knew anything about the stage 2. And in the phase 3, they were saying, "Oh yes, it's a good thing, and Mexico buy it, and they apply it." And then 2 months later, they were saying, "Oh no, it's not working," and they don't buy anything else. So it's just everybody that get that vaccine and get exposed to that vaccine and might be having some kind of problem after that, who's going to do something about it? That's why it's a very sad story about people who's getting Sputnik vaccine and is not having good results with that, and they thought they were protected and they were not.
Right. You know, one of the things I think that was helpful because I just got back from the U.S. and the hospital there in this relatively small town where I'm from is the hospital's putting out the statistics of, and there was a huge jump because Delta just hit basically where I'm from, and they're putting the statistics in the hospital of how many people were in the hospital, and then they would put also if they're vaccinated, if they're unvaccinated, the complications, and who is has on the ventilator, vaccinated, not vaccinated. Do they have those sorts of statistics here? Are they doing that here so people can actually see what's happening?
Well, in the private hospitals, those numbers are not very shared. But in the public hospitals, they have like a little different quality of the statistics. And I want to share you something about that point that you mentioned. Some of the time of the COVID sometimes is 2 or 3 weeks. And after that, we were seeing complications after COVID, which is something very important. There are people who's getting in the hospitals that they finish COVID, and after the COVID, the whole COVID brings the immune system down, and they were a lot of complications with the lungs, fibrosis, and other kind of things, and they die because those kind of complications were not good managed, and their bodies are not enough to suffer that, So yes, in some point, we're not having good statistics in the private hospitals because they want to keep it private. And in the public hospitals, we're having some different cases. We're having people who is not getting into the hospitals normally, and they get infected into the hospital, and they finish in the COVID areas, and they get complicated. And we're having
So what do you mean by they're not getting to the hospital normally?
For example, it's from cases from people who's getting a surgery, an emergency surgery, has appendicitis. So they get into the surgery and they get infected. And then, right now we're trying to low down a little bit more the risk, because there's so many people in the public services. Many, many people. And I want to share also there's so many expats who choose to have the EMSS as a social security service.
Okay, the EAMS.
In the meantime, they have here, yes. And I honestly don't recommend that very much. I know you're used to the services in Medicare or the social services in the US, but it's not the same, okay? So yes, they cover your medication, they're covering your hospital, everything is covered. But what the quality of the attention? Some people get EMSS and they have good luck and they have good doctors and they like it. But in some point, there's very, very bad services right now because they're not having enough medications. They're not having enough personnel to take care of the patients. So the appointments are just very, very far away. And it's very difficult for them, okay? So
right.
It's not very trustable to have something like that, just like a primary care, okay? Because these services are completely full of people, and
right.
it's a lot of bureaucracy trying to do the step 1, step 2. It's like a little complicated.
And is that part of the problem, you think, now, especially with the COVID, that the hospitals are now overrun? Is that what's happening?
Yes, well, right now we have a better idea about how to distribute the hospitals. For example, we're not having unique hospitals to get in only COVID, okay? There, for example, Hospital Faro has COVID areas and also has no COVID areas, okay? So also one of the things is that we have understand a little bit more how the transmission of the virus is done, because at the beginning was because we thought that even with the clothes and things like that, right now it's very clear that the transmission is through the saliva or just through the little particles of your saliva that has the virus. That's why the mask is, you need to use the mask when you're sharing, some meeting with someone or a close approach. Okay. And in the Star Medical Hospital is also a COVID area. Okay, they have COVID and no COVID. So right now, in both cases, we're having like small spaces when we have like COVID patients and no COVID patients, because right now it's more clear how the transmission is done, and the strategies to take care of the patients is better. Okay.
Right. I have another question here. Sai just chimed in. Hi, Sai. She says, when will we be seeing third vaccination or vaccines? How do you feel about mixing vaccine types?
Okay, well, if we're talking specifically in Mexico, it's going to take some time. Honestly, yes.
A
Honestly,
lot of
I
people are
think
still waiting for
it's going
first.
to. Yes, we haven't finished yet the first and second doses, and the federal government has no many interested to have vaccines, and it's very sad because these public strategies of public health in Mexico, they're very, very bad. And I think the third vaccines will be maybe next year. I'm not sure we will have it soon, but the president changed of mind every second. So maybe he can give us a surprise, but I don't think so. It's going to, at least it's not something that we are hearing in the plans of the epidemiology department for the moment. No.
And what about her? The second part here, she says, how do you feel about mixing vaccine types?
Well, I honestly, I'm a little not very happy with that, especially because the mechanism of action of each vaccine, sometimes they're very different. Talking about the Pfizer vaccine and AstraZeneca, both of them are completely different. And still, we don't have a lot of information. There's some clinical trials talking about the mixing of the vaccine, but the sample population is very few, and it's not enough to actually say, yes, you can actually mix the types. The best thing to do is not mixing the types. Try to not to do it, okay? Because we don't know what to expect and how can that could be affecting in your body, okay?
Right. Okay, so here, Julie, here's another question. Should you check with the hospital that you use to see what insurance they take before you purchase insurance?
Okay, yes. Before you go to the hospital, you need to check if your insurance has international coverage, especially to Mexico. And you need to check if the hospital you want to go has partnership with your insurance company. In some point, there's some kind of emergency situations, like there are some exceptions that they could allow you, and then they do all the process. But if you can do it before you go to the hospital, that will be the best option. Try to avoid that black that one.
And I do want to chime in on that. I actually did an article on this. There is a company, and now it's escaping my mind, but Julie, I do have an article written on this on MID CityBeat. There's a company that does is kind of a middleman, and they can take care of your insurance for you. And there are hospitals in Merida that do accept foreign insurance. You just have to make sure which one. So I know Fado, I know MID, and I know Oncourt, I believe, as well. What was that?
Amex Care, that's the name.
Amex Care, yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Amex Care is the name of the company. And again, you can check on MID CityBeat on my health section. It says, what hospitals are accepting foreign insurance. Granted, I did that article before the pandemic. Some things might have changed, but that information, it is a possibility. So, but yes, definitely you should check with the hospital first.
Yeah. I want to make some points about that too. Yes, it's a funny situation because I remember the first time when I get in contact with Amex Care, I was trying to do that kind of things to make in contact with the insurance, the international insurance. But I will make a suggestion about that too. The hospitals here that, yes, they do accept international coverage is Hospital Faro, Emirates, CMA, the SEM
The SEM,
Hospital, SEM
SEMA.
Hospital. And Star Medica is like in the process to accept it. And but yes, it's important to have like a very good medical team. I mean, it's important to have someone who's going to do like all the medical team, because even if you have your insurance accepted, who's going to be, I mean, like the
Your
specialist who's going to
your
take care of
advocate
the kid.
in the special,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's very important to do. Mhm.
Which is a good point for people that don't already have that established here, that that don't already have that community. It's a good time to really start to create that community for you if you do need it in the hospital. Yeah, and if anybody has any questions about that, you could reach out to me or reach out to Fanny, and I can get the information. I mean, you can reach out to me first because I know Fanny's really busy, but I facilitate or get you some answers to those questions as well. So okay, let me see what other questions we had, because okay, so Tom says here, why isn't enforcing of masking? Why isn't enforcement of masking as was done initially? So all you have to do is walk by Paseo Monteo and see dozens without masks. Okay, so yeah, the mask mandate, of course, is still in place in Yucatan. However, I think people are getting a little bit more lax. What do you think about that, Fanny?
Yeah, honestly, I think that people is a little tired about this situation, and I think the feeling of the government is just like now giving the opportunity to the people to be responsible and to deciding. There's still, it's like part of the I mean, from the restrictions. If you go, for example, into the mall or you go into the closed space, you have to wear a mask. That's very important, because even if they see like the person's inside, if they're not having any mask, they're just going to do a problem with them. So yes, in this inside places, yes, the people is just like
Movie
having be
theaters,
careful, yes.
malls.
But in the open environments, no, they're not. No, and also because the people is getting a little lax all in that, and also because, yeah, in some point, people doing exercise with masking is not very fun. It's not a good thing. And the other thing is that if you're in an open environment, the risk of to get contaminated or to be contagious is less than being in a closed space.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
right. Just a couple other topics that I wanted to touch on. Well, first off, of course, school is back, and that's a big controversy right now. And I know a lot of parents and teachers, to be honest, that are they really want to get back into school. It's been really, really tough, and I always tell my friends, I'm like, thank God my kids are older now, and I don't have to deal with the little ones, in house. I mean, they really do need the social interaction. But that's a big issue right now. People are very worried because because not everybody has access to the vaccinations, et cetera, et cetera. And even if they do, there's I don't even think it should be called breakthrough cases anymore. It's not breakthrough cases. People with the vaccinations are getting COVID left and right. So, what do you think about that? About schools?
Yeah, well, it's difficult because it's difficult to control the kids, even when you're little, you want to play and everything, and you share your toys and everything, which is very difficult to control the kids. So honestly, there's no plans to vaccinated people. I mean, little kids between 12 and 18. Right now, there's no plans to do that. They have asked me that, and no, there are not plans right now. Even if they're vulnerable sleep population, they're not vaccinate them. I think it's going to take some time, but the reality is that we will see more cases, and the families. And I think what it's very sad for me is the impact on the economy of the families that they are going to back to the school, because there's so many factors that you can control. I mean, the janitor, the people who's cleaning the school, the teachers, I mean, the full kids that they're getting together. So it's just like difficult. It's important that the kids can have some social interaction. And also, I mean, the incidency of people who's drop off the school, I mean, it's so terrible. I mean, the kids are leaving the schools right now because they're not following up with the virtual classes. And yes, it's been
You mean like it's the kids that are dropping out of school?
Yeah,
exactly. That are dropping out, that are no longer attending school.
No. So that's very sad. I mean, that's hitting the country, because one of the things is that we have to take care of the education also, because that's the future of our population.
Right. Absolutely.
And if they're not following the school, I mean, that's not a good thing. I mean, we are destroying our own young population. So yes, at some point we have to balance, I mean, risk and benefits about going to the school. Honestly, I think that is not the best strategy what they're doing right now, because not all the schools have all the suppliers. They don't have all the infrastructure to be ready to actually go to school. I mean, if it's going to be something more truly, it will be better to do it like completely do all the infrastructure in the schools, and then okay, if we're ready, we have everything that we need, then we can open, and with these measures.
Right.
But they're
especially at the public school. Yes. At some of the public schools, it's, and I was just reading right before we came on that there's going to be a protest along Paseo de Montejo of some of the public school teachers. And of course, not everybody probably, but there's a lot of teachers that do not want to go back to school.
Yeah, because for example, they're pushing them to put off their own money. And a teacher in Mexico doesn't earn a lot of money.
No, maybe 5,000 pesos a month to 10,000 pesos a month. Yeah, so we're talking $200 to $500 a month, which is not enough to live here.
No. And imagine they have to pay for soap. They have to pay for some kind of the things that they need. I mean, the state should provide them, and they have to do it because they are pushing them to get to school. And that's nonsense, because right now they're not given all the things that they need. That's why they're protesting. And it's not fair for them to do that, because they should have all the safety rules should be very clear, and all the safety things should be very, very well done. And the federal government just give the responsibility to each of the schools, and that's terrible.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, okay, so we'll kind of start to finish up. I do have one or two more things I want to touch on. Another question from Mark is, are you seeing any shortages of medicines or oxygen here?
Lots of them. It's very sad, because sometimes we're not can have all the medications. I mean, some of the brand medications, we're not having all of them, and we have to use some similar things instead of them. Some medication for pain. I mean, cancer patient has struggling very much because we're not having all the pain medications. Oxygen, it's a little difficult too, and having concentrators also, it's a little difficult. So yes, we're having shortage in that. Yes.
Okay, so yeah.
Well, I want to.
Maybe we'll try to end on a good note. I'm not sure how that's possible.
Yeah.
One thing I do actually want to ask you, and that is coming up. We hear all these things about how to prevent getting infected and etc. But of course, we're not preventing it necessarily. There's been lots of scientists now saying, everybody's going to get it. So when we have COVID, what are some of the basic things that we can do, or how can we prepare our body? And if we actually have it, and if we're not feeling good, what can we do? What are the first things that we need to start doing at home?
Okay. Well, I think that the two keys for the success of the COVID is one, rest. And the second is eat well. Okay. So if we're talking about get rest, it's because your body is a viral disease. So you have to leave the viral disease. So it's nothing right now that can stop the illness, and will not have any specific treatment to try to give you something to stop that. So that's why you need to rest. You need your body concentrated in trying to avoid the virus and trying to stop the virus, okay? And all your resources trying to focus on that. And the second one, why you need to eat well and supplement well, because you need proteins to create antibodies, you need vitamin C to create all the defenses and trying to build the collagen for your lungs. So yes, I mean, that's why it's so important to do that. And that's why I was telling people, because sometimes people get so anxious and want to get like all the medications they can get. They buy ivermectin, they buy azithromycin, they do whatever they found. And it's not like that. I mean, there is like a less possibility that you can get infected. I mean, get complicated if you follow those rules and the little carings about don't sleep with your wet hair and don't change your temperatures very like go into the room very cold and go outside and it's very hot, because your temperature body change a little bit and you can control it very well with the fever and those things. So those are the little tips that are important to do before you, if you get COVID or trying to prevent it.
And one of the and that's another thing that I also, a nurse was telling some of the people that I know that have COVID is that about the temperature. Careful about cooking a lot, because we know here in the temperature goes up at like 10 degrees when you're in the kitchen. So going from into cooking and then back out, those temperature changes can really affect our body, as well as a reoccurring topic that has been coming up is that for people not to be laying on their back, to be sitting up or being on their stomach. How have you found, what do you think about that? I mean, that seems like now that's actually protocol with the hospital. Back at home where I am, they call it tummy time. Try lay on your stomach, just not on your back, or if you're resting, don't lay on your back, sit up. What do you think about that?
Well, yes, it's something we do in the hospital, especially in the ICU units, because when you're having your lungs with a lot of phlegms, that mobility helps to mobilize a little bit those phlegms to get out from your system, because in some point they get like very complicated. If you're getting the mild COVID and no signs of pneumonia, it doesn't help a lot. But if you're having like the beginnings of the pneumonia, yes, it helps. I mean, to mobilize a little bit.
Right. Okay. And okay, so vitamins, like say you got it, and what kind of vitamins should you have in your house?
Well, vitamin C, zinc, vitamin D from the sun that we have a lot here.
Right. Vitamin D, go out into your patio, get the vitamin D. Right.
Yes, and a multivitamin from bases that have folic acid and B complex and this kind of things. That will be the best. And eat well. I mean, there are so many people who's trying to think that the food is not good and they're stopping to eat some things. But I mean, nature gives us whatever we need, so we have to improve that.
Right. Vegetables, fruits,
yes,
proteins. Right.
And we are very blessed here because we have like natural things that we can buy in the markets, and we have seasoned fruits that can be helpful and very delicious. So you can do that.
And Gloria, Gloria is joining us from YouTube. Hi, Gloria. Gloria says here, Dr. Charles Hoff found 62% of patients who received COVID mRNA jab test positive for blood clots. So what about for blood clots? Should people be taking things for blood clots?
Yeah, well, yes, we're seeing like people having like blood clots with the COVID vaccine and some vein insufficiency problems and other kind of things that are triggered because of that. But I have to tell that is not well published here. I mean, it's very sad, but when we want to report that, they're not accepting those kind of things because they don't want to keep following those cases here. So it's very, very sad.
So you don't have much statistics here about blood clots. But do you recommend people take something like aspirin? That's a normal thing that people take for blood clots. Are you recommending that for people that might be at risk?
Well, yes, I mean that could be a precaution to help like improving your and be not having so many risks to have blood clots. And the other things, the mobility. I mean, they need to do some exercise or some activity to help improve the vein capability and also the vein health, you know?
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, I think we'll go ahead and kind of start to wrap things up. Thanks so much, everybody. I think I kind of got, I mean, we do have some other comments here of hi and saying thank you. And yeah, that it's sad that there aren't so many vaccines available here. Justin chimed in. And so, yes, I think that at this point, it's just we got to take care. We got to do the best to keep our bodies healthy. Yes. If we get COVID, we get COVID, and try to keep continue to eat right, take our vitamins, do the best we can, not to freak out, right? Because I'm really scared. It's a scary thing, and especially if you have tendencies to, you have high blood pressure, you have all these pre-existing conditions, it can be quite terrifying. So to kind of maintain your mental state too. So it's tricky.
Yes, and there's so many people who has lost friends and family, and obviously they feel very, very bad about that, and it's normal to be afraid, But yes, I mean, trying to give up to anxiety is not the best thing. I mean, it's true that we need to live. I mean, we have to understand we need to start to give up a little bit the anxiety and trying to rebuild our lives and in a safety way and trying to be cautious and trying to not expose people also. And we're trying to be like prevent all the possibilities of getting complicated. But yes, keeping yourself healthy, that's the best thing. And doing exercise, eating well, trying to have the healthiest life possible. And don't forget that there's still things that are outside and not just COVID. I mean, sadly, there's so many people who, with the pandemic, they postpone everything in their lives. And there's so many people who's getting all the pathologies that are getting complicated because they are not have medical attention and time to delay a little bit the progression of those illnesses. So yes, I mean, you have to stop a little bit the scare to the doctors, because at the beginning of the pandemic was horrible. Everybody don't want to see a doctor because they were thinking they were possible contaminate me with the COVID. But it's not like that, okay? And honestly, we need to follow up with all the different illnesses that we might have and there is not the only thing outside, so just be careful.
Right. All right. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Rubio, again, for coming with us and keeping us updated. And yeah, good luck, everybody out there. We got to just kind of keep as safe as possible. I guess just continue with all our sanitary measures, but also, living cautiously.
Yes, and I want to say something about the sanitation, because is there people who's having eczema and problems with the sanitation? Don't over sanitize things right now. I mean, your immune system there's like soldiers. They need to be trained and they need to be exposed, and that exposure makes them to understand what's the virus and locate it and destroy it. But if you're over sanitized, you're making your immune system a little lazy also, because you're not like doing everything right, trying to put your immune system lazy, because every time they find a bad guy, they won't going to kill him. So that's why it's so important to wash your hands, wear your mask, okay? But no over sanitize, because people is using like the mats in the floor and whatever. I mean, that's not very helpful. I mean, the mats in the floor, they're not reducing your risk to get like COVID. But I think that with the time, there's some kind of measures that are going to be changing, and we will improve a little bit that situation.
Right. Well, great. Well, thanks so much, and thank you again. You know, I always try to give a shout out to you and to all of the medical staff. I mean, really, you guys have had the toughest job over the last year and a half, and it doesn't stop. I mean, you always have a really tough job. Let's be real, but especially with this pandemic. So I just want to say, you know, a collective thank you to you and to everybody that really does put in so much energy and so much time. And I know you're so tired all the time, and you know your nose is rubbed clean from your masks, and you know I think that it's important to also say thank you for doing that.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Fanny. Well, we will be in touch, as you know. And thanks everybody for chiming in. I hope that it was a little bit helpful, and we'll see you soon.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.